Now that the 2023 ATP season is around the corner, let's take a look back at the 2022 ATP season. So we start the year in Australia. The ATP Cup kicks off the year with Team Canada beating Spain in the final. The duo of Chapo and Felix being too strong for the rest of the field. Nadal, who decided to skip the ATP Cup this year, had won his first title of Melbourne in an ATP 250, which was a very positive result considering he'd spent a lot of time out last season due to his foot injury. Next we move first Grand Slam of the year, the 2022 Australian Open. Initially, there was a whole saga with Djokovic being allowed to play or not being allowed to play. It was a whole thing, with him eventually getting deported out of the country. So throughout these 2 weeks, there were many thrilling 5-set matches in Australia. Most notably, Chapo versus Nadal, Auger-Aliassime versus Medvedev, and Berrettini versus Alcaraz, as well as some funny moments as well, like Medvedev calling the umpire a small cat, or even the controversy after Shapovalov's loss against Nadal. He accused the umpire of being biased towards Nadal, being lenient with timings during the match. But the most memorable moment, how could anyone forget this moment? There was an instant classic between Nadal and Medvedev, with Rafa coming back from 2 sets to love down against a red-hot Medvedev who just won his first Grand Slam merely months ago in New York. And with all the health concerns coming into this tournament, it was amazing to see that Nadal's level was still so high with the age that it is. And he had surpassed now Federer and Djokovic with 21 Grand Slams. Also in the doubles, hometown heroes Kyrgios and Kokkinakis had become Grand Slam champions in the doubles with an amazing run to the title, beating several top 10 pairings. Now after the AO tournament, we moved to the indoor/clay court tournaments. So Bublik surprised everyone with a win over Zverev to capture the title in Montpellier. And FAA won his first ever title, breaking that finals curse for the win in Rotterdam over Tsitsipas. As well as this, Alcaraz won his first ATP 500 title in Rio with a win over Schwartzman in the final. Later on in February, there was the Dubai ATP 500 tournament, with Novak making his first appearance of the year after that whole Australian Open saga. However, he had a surprise loss to Vesely, with Rublev going on to win the title in Dubai. And Nadal had also picked up another title in Mexico, beating Cam Norrie in the final, with a win against Medvedev en route to the final. It's clear to see that Nadal definitely has Medvedev's number. Then, in March, it was the month of the Masters 1000s, with Indian Wells and Miami taking up the whole tennis calendar for March. So first of all, it was Indian Wells, and the title was captured by hometown hero Taylor Fritz, beating Nadal in the final. Both men had injury concerns coming into the final that day, with there being reports in the morning of both men having different injuries. However, it was Taylor Fritz who managed to overcome those injuries and go on to win that title. Despite this though, Nadal still had a great and thrilling run to the final, with captivating matches such as the win against Alcaraz in the semi-finals or Kyrgios in the quarter-finals. Then, in the second Masters 1000 on hardcourt, Alcaraz had won his first Masters 1000 title at the age of 18 years old, with a win against Ruud in the final. And his route to the final as well was very thrilling, with great matches against Tsitsipas and Hurkacz, but a match of the year contender against Kecmanovic. If you have a chance to watch the highlights, you should, because that match was amazing. Now moving on to the clay court season. We begin at a first Masters clay court event in Monte Carlo, as Tsitsipas defended his 2021 Monte Carlo title by winning it again in 2022 and beating Alejandro Davidovich Fokina in the final, and ADF on the route to the final beating Djokovic as well. Then, in Barcelona, Alcaraz won another title by playing 2 matches in one day due to the weather conditions and saving match points against De Minaur to go on to beat his good friend Pablo Carreño Busta in the final. Then, probably one of the best tournament runs of the whole year was Alcaraz winning his second Masters 1000 in Madrid, beating the top 3 seeds all in a row, Zverev in the final, Djokovic in the semi-final, and Nadal in the quarter-finals. The match against Djokovic had become an instant classic, with 2 tie-breaks and 1 7-5 set. It was one of the closest best-of-3 matches you'll probably see, with amazing shot-making, and the Nadal match for Alcaraz being a somewhat passing of the torch moment, as the young Spaniard took on the King of Clay on his favourite surface and beat him. The King of Spain was even there to witness that match. Lastly, there was one last Masters 1000 before Roland Garros in Rome, and Djokovic had come roaring back from his defeat in Belgrade to win this Masters 1000, confirming that he was still a top contender for the Roland Garros title this year. Now, moving on to the second Grand Slam of the year, where Nadal captures 22nd Grand Slam, as well as his 14th French Open. This is crazy to think that a few years ago, many people would never have thought that Pete Sampras's Grand Slam record would ever have been broken, let alone that one player has done it at a single tournament. There was an unfortunate injury, however, to Alexander Zverev in the semi-final against Nadal, where he had an awful ankle twist, which put him out for the rest of the season. The match itself was beginning to become absurd, though, because they had been playing for 3 hours and they hadn't even finished the second set. We also got a rematch of the thrilling Djokovic versus Nadal on Philippe Chatrier, with Nadal winning in 4. Djokovic seemingly almost giving up in this later stages of the match, according to his coach Goran Ivanisevic. And these were the Djokovic stands when they realised. The young guns also had some pretty impressive matches. Holger Rune put his name on the map by beating Tsitsipas, who was one of the favourites before the tournament, as well as Alcaraz showing immense fortitude in his second round comeback win over Albert Ramos Vignolas, saving match points along the way. Now, that was the end of part 1 of the season, where we took a look up until the first 2 Grand Slams. So in the second half, we'll look at the other 2 Grand Slams, as well as the matches of the year, performances of the year, and things like that. So thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.